Assalamualaikum and a very good day to everyone. Welcome to yet another session of Kelantan E-Class. I am teacher Adlina and today I will guide you on how to write an argumentative essay. Ready your pens, ready your pencils, ready your papers, ready your highlighters, and let's go. Before we proceed further, I would like you to pay attention to these learning goals. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand the structure of an argumentative essay and to plan and write a well-structured essay. I believe that you can definitely do this. Alright, so what exactly is an argumentative essay? I know some of you are shaking your heads. Truth be told, I've had students in the past who told me that this is definitely the type of essay that they don't like, the least favorite of them. Well, I wouldn't be blaming them because it is less fun to write compared to, say, a narrative or a descriptive, because for argumentative essay, you need to really persuade your readers to agree with the argument being made. You need to make them see. You need to make your readers see the point that you are making. You need to make them agree with you. You need to include facts and evidence to support your argument. If you are the type of person who likes to read news, you like to keep yourself up to date with the happenings around the world, you like trivias, you like to go on Wikipedias, all the wiki pages, then this is definitely the question for you. Okay? So since an argumentative essay is part of the continuous writing, paper 1, part 2, section B, the suggested time is 60 minutes. Spend the first 5 minutes on preparation, 50 minutes to write the actual essay, and the final 5 minutes for checking. Step 1, the moment you get the question paper and decided to write your essay, identify your keywords and phrases. Don't leave your highlighters at home, students. Bring them to your exam hall, highlight or underline the points, the key points. Step number 2, you need to decide whether you want to agree or disagree with the argument presented. Be firm in your stand. Do not suddenly change your mind halfway in the middle of writing the essay. Don't be swayed. Step 3, once you have stated your stand, once you have decided to agree or disagree, jot down quickly the ideas or examples that you want to present later. And step 4, start writing and mark the ideas that you have used. You can either cross them out or just put a tick or a check next to the ideas that you jot down. And finally, for step 5, very important but always neglected by many candidates, always check your writing before exam ends. Make sure that you didn't leave out anything. Make sure that you did not reuse your ideas. Make sure that you did not leave any part blank, like introduction. Make sure that you have completed all parts before you hand in your exam paper. Okay, so 60 minutes for section B, argumentative writing. Should be enough for you. So here are some past year questions for argumentative essays. Alright, so in 2015, the question was, social networking has caused a lot of problems. How far do you agree? And in 2016, some people believe that all students in Malaysia should learn at least 3 languages. What do you think? Notice that the question may not ask you to give reasons to support your view, but it does not mean that you do not have to do that. Okay? You still have to give reasons, you still have to justify your argument, You still have to give explanation. Also, notice that in 2015, the question was worded negatively, has caused a lot of problems. So you have to first understand the question. For example, when question is worded negatively like this, your reasons have to be only on problems, the disadvantages of social networking. For 2016, this question is worded positively, in which if you agree, you should provide reasons why it is beneficial to learn 3 languages. Okay, so in 2017, the question was, the Malaysian tradition of having open houses is important and should be practiced more. Do you agree? Give reasons to support your view. This is a very clear-cut question. It has a statement. It asks you if you agree, and then it asks you to give reasons to support your view. All right? And this question is also worded positively, like 2016. So you need to, if you agree with this argument, you need to give all the good things about this tradition of open houses. Moving on to 2018, the question was, young people should be trusted to make their own decisions. How far do you agree with this opinion? Explain why. Very clear-cut as well. And this question is worded positively. In 2019, look, don't be intimidated by a longer question. Modern inventions have made our lives much too complicated. Things used to be a lot simpler in the past. How far do you agree? Explain why. For this one, as it is worded negatively, if you agree with this argument, you will have to present information that supports how modern inventions just made our life worse instead of better. Okay, so what about this year? When revising your lessons, maybe you can consider looking up topics related to healthy lifestyle. Whose responsibility is it to promote healthy lifestyle? Vaccine is also a topic that is becoming increasingly popular these days. Should it be made compulsory? Online learning, another topic. Social media trends and influences, the good, the bad, the advantages or disadvantages. And then on the topic of technology, maybe they can ask you about dependency on technology, gadget addiction, for example, among young people, among teenagers, or among children even. And finally, you might also want to consider looking up issues among teenagers. All right. Now, let's move on to the structure of an argumentative essay. Is it different? Maybe you would like to take 5 seconds to look at the structure. Is it different? Generally, it's the same. You still have your introduction, a few paragraphs for your body, and 1 paragraph for conclusion. But notice that before conclusion, the last part of your body paragraphs, there's 1 paragraph for counter-argument and rebuttal. What is it about? Later I will bring you. Okay, so next, for the purpose of this lesson today, we will be looking at this question. This came out in our Kelantan trial 2020. E-learning has become a good and practical platform for students to learn. How far do you agree? Online learning, e-learning, mobile learning, still on the same topic. Okay, so when you look at the question, as I've said before, always highlight the key points. So what is the topic? What is the main topic? The topic is about e-learning. So what happened to it? It has become a good and practical platform. Not only good, but also practical. So you have to address both things. And then, who is involved? Students. So this e-learning involves students. How far do you agree? Do you strongly agree? Do you disagree? And why? Even if the question doesn't ask you to justify, always justify your argument. Okay? Still with me? Let's have a bit of a recap. In our previous session, we have talked about the structure of an introduction. It's still the same with argumentative essay. In your introduction, you have your hook, in which you get the attention, you try to grab the attention of your reader by using definition, analogy, statistic, quotes, or headlines, and then you give your introduction a little background details. You add some background information like the effects, the importance of addressing this issue, and that's for your context. And last one for your introduction is the thesis statement. This is where you state whether you agree or disagree with the argument. Okay, so how does it look like on paper? So, how do you state your stance, make your claim, agree or disagree with the argument in your thesis statement? You can use transition words like I strongly agree or disagree. It is true that e-learning is good, okay. Or you can use I strongly believe that e-learning is good and practical. You can also say it's my belief that e-learning and I am convinced that e-learning is good and practical. Or you can also say based on what I know, e-learning is good and practical for students to learn. What if you don't want to use I in your argumentative? You cannot do that. You can start with a statement that shows you agree or disagree without using I. How do you go about doing that? This is how the introduction looks like after we have finished writing the hook, the context, and the thesis statement. The hook that is used here is a quote. Online learning is not the next big thing. It is the now big thing. The quote by Donna J. Abernathy reflects the educational transformation happening in many parts of the world. So this is your hook. You make your reader interested in the topic of your essay. So it's about online learning. It's happening in many parts of the world. Add in some context. Which part of the world? Narrow it down to our Malaysia. In Malaysia, the enforcement of the Movement Control Order in March 2020, following the COVID-19 pandemic, has resulted in a remarkable increase in the availability of e-learning resources. This little detail tells your reader what happened to make it seem that online learning or e-learning is becoming bigger, more important in Malaysia. Next sentence, still adding a little bit more details to it. Efforts to make them more accessible have more than doubled over time. So here, not only the resources are becoming more and more, increasing in number, the efforts to make them easier to access has also doubled. So, what happens as a result? This is where your thesis statement come in. If you want to use the transition I, you can say, I strongly agree that e-learning has become a good and practical platform for students to learn. Very easy to understand, right? Or you can also write a statement that implies that you agree with the argument. As a result, e-learning has become an excellent and practical platform for students to learn. A little bit of paraphrasing to make it more interesting. Instead of good, you used excellent. Alright? So this is your introduction. So now that we have the hook, the context, and the thesis statement, let's put it together in a paragraph. Hook the reader's attention. You have hooked the reader's attention. You have added your background details, and then you have indicated your stance. This is the introduction that you have. Okay? Let's move on. Now, let's look at the body paragraphs of an argumentative essay. Okay, so you have to express your reason. You have to give the reasons why you agree or disagree with the argument. You also need to elaborate on your reason, add some examples, explain with some effects, and then you can use analysis transition to end your body paragraph. When introducing your reasons, there are several transitions that you can use. For example, to begin with, to start, another reason, additionally, or due to. Still with me? Okay. As for example, you can start your sentence, you can introduce your examples by using transition words like for example, for instance, in particular, in fact, or in other words. If you have many examples, change it up, mix it up. Don't use the same thing over and over. If you have used for example in, say, the first body paragraph, when you introduce your example in the next paragraph, use something else. For instance, maybe? And then you can explain a bit about the effects and analysis transition at the end. After you have given your reason, after you have elaborated, what's the conclusion? This proves that you are correct. This shows, or clearly, or you can say as can be seen from the reasons and examples given, or you can also start your sentence with simply something like, this means that the argument is correct. That's it for argumentative body paragraphs. So how do we go about writing this? Remember to use transition when you present your reason. Okay, for the purpose of this example, I've picked to begin with because it's a sample of your first body paragraph. To begin with, e-learning offers students the flexibility of working at their own pace, allowing them to take their time to understand the lesson better. So this is your reason. Now, you have to support your reason. You can present facts, you can include statistics, you can give examples or anecdotes. Written here, what we have here is students have plenty of time to digest and engage with their lessons because they can access the learning materials whenever they want, wherever they are. For instance, this is where we give example of when and where. If they miss a live lesson due to being unwell or experiencing poor internet connection, they can always review the materials at a later date. And then we follow up with an analysis transitions. So, after we have written all of the sentences, what does this mean? This shows that e-learning is practical because it gives the students the opportunity to not miss out on lessons. So this is what your body paragraph looks like. Okay, next, the next part. This is something that many candidates neglect to mention in their essays. Okay, counter-argument and rebuttal. It is necessary for us to acknowledge that there are opposing ideas. But it doesn't mean that we have to agree with this opposing idea. What we need to do is to fight back with reasons, examples, with anecdotes or facts in the paragraph. We make people see our way. Okay, so critics argue that this is how you start your counter-argument paragraph. Critics argue that e-learning is highly disadvantageous because it is hard to assess if a student's work is their own. Okay, so this is a disadvantage. Remember, this is an opposing idea. While there may be cases where students enlist the help of others to complete their work, fight back. Okay, fight back. It should not be used as an excuse to deprive honest students of the opportunity to enjoy the perks of e-learning. A study by IBM, a technology giant, found that students learn 5 times more material in online classes using multimedia content than in traditional face-to-face classroom. Okay, this is how we fight back. We use facts. We use results from a survey. Okay? So, the transition before you end the paragraph, this finding proves that e-learning is highly beneficial for students. Always insist that your point is true. Your point of view, you want to make them agree with you, so you need to always bring them back to that point to drive the point home. Okay, so you've had the introduction, and then we've talked about the body paragraphs. We've covered the counter-argument and rebuttal. Here are some transitions that you can use when introducing your counter-argument. The ones that we have used before starts with critics argue that. Other transitions include the followings that you can see. Others may say that, while it might be true that, or a common argument may be that, it's easy to think that. Another, it can be argued that, and finally, those who disagree may believe that, blah, blah, blah. So these are some of the transitions that you can use to introduce your counter-argument. All right. So what do we have left after we have covered these 3? Of course, we have our conclusion. This has also been discussed in details in our previous session. Just a warm-up. There are 3 parts in the structure of a conclusion. You have your topic restatement, in which you bring your readers back to the topic of your essay. You can refer to the context part of your introduction. And the second part of your conclusion is your thesis restatement. This is where you use different words to restate your thesis. It's not wrong if you ran out of ideas and you want to recycle your thesis statement. But as much as possible, please rephrase them to make it more interesting. And a bit of a warning here, never introduce new ideas in your conclusion, or you will have to write a whole new paragraph all over again. And the last part of your conclusion is your final statement. This is where you impress your readers one last time to leave a lasting impression on them. Make a call to action, give your audience an advice. Okay? How does this look like in an actual paragraph? Okay, in purple you have the restatement of topic, starting with a transition there. In conclusion, e-learning has indeed become a welcome addition to the education scene, creating a chance for students to continue learning despite being unable to attend classes physically. This comes from our context at the beginning. So, how do you restate your thesis? Always insist that it is proven true. It proves to be an excellent platform that provides a highly practical, safe, and flexible learning environment brimming with potentials. And your final statement, your call to action, to maximize its usefulness, the authorities in charge should seek to improve the infrastructure of existing and emerging e-learning platforms so that more engaging features can be added. And that's the end of your conclusion. Alright, students, we have finished our introduction, our body paragraphs, and our conclusion. So when you put them side by side, as you can see here, in the first column, you have the introduction. In the middle column, you have the body paragraph. And in the final column there, you have the conclusion. Notice that the length is more or less similar. I would like to stress that a good essay has a structure in which the length of your paragraphs are similar. You cannot write a very short introduction and then go on and on in your body paragraphs for 1 page or more, and then you come back to a conclusion of only 1 or 2 paragraphs. It will pull your mark down because your paragraphs don't look well structured. Okay? And before we end today's session, I would like to tell you a bit of the do's and don'ts in writing an argumentative essay. Okay, so when you present your reasons, when you organize your reasons, your arguments, make sure to start with the most important reason first and the least important one last. Okay? And then avoid making a sweeping statement. Avoid making overgeneralization. For example, statements or sentences that start with all students hate homework, or something that sounds like everyone in the world, everyone in my class, something that is blanketing the whole thing, something larger, because you cannot prove it. You cannot prove that every single person or every single student in your school agree with you. Okay? So avoid making generalization. And finally, in terms of contractions, avoid using can't or don't. Use cannot and do not. Also, refrain from using too much idiomatic expressions. Alright. Well, it seems we have reached the end of our lesson today. I hope you have learned something from this session, and I bid you a good day. See you next time, and thank you for watching. Bye!